You know what they say? Any firearms regulation or laws is an infringement.
Yep.
In some way, shape, or form.
Welcome to the ATF Podcast.
Are we recording?
We're recording.
Welcome to the podcast, guys. Would you like to talk about this whiskey you're drinking before we start?
This is biased for no reason other than that I've slowly become obsessed with this stuff. Willet 4-year rye. Small batch. It's the family estate line of Willet. If you don't have any, buy some. If you can't find it, too bad. It's delicious.
Maybe we could link some in the description.
No, you can't.
I
can link an article about it. You can't buy it. I don't know where you can buy it online. I'm probably making stuff up. I think you can buy it online, but it's never available. There's the green top, which is this, and then there's the purple top, which is their bourbon. Green signifies rye, purple's bourbon. The purple.
Can I give it a taste?
Good luck finding that one. Actually, those
glass?
glasses are kind of dirty.
Oh,
probably. I don't know why.
Well,
that's the dirty one.
That's the dirt. I grabbed the dirty one. What about this little guy?
No, let me grab you a glass.
We're really organized here, as you can see. This is a live tasting, guys. To be honest, Alec is the whiskey connoisseur. I'm not a whiskey guy.
People call it connoisseur.
So every time if my face looks like I don't like it, it's probably because I don't like whiskey.
So I'm giving him really expensive.
But if I like this, as someone who's not a whiskey connoisseur, that means that it's really good, and you should go purchase some yourself.
I was kind of pretending to actually enjoy bourbon for a long time until I found this.
Give me a little sip.
So one thing, first sip, you're not going to like it. That you never will like it on the first sip.
All right.
Because the alcohol, also this is barrel proof. So this has not been watered down at all. If you have
So this is straight from the
straight from the teat.
Straight from the teat. Straight from the whiskey teat.
Right. If you have a low quality bourbon that's barrel proof, it's just going to taste like hot alcohol. This is definitely spicy, but then it smoothens out.
So as someone like myself who loves cigars but doesn't like whiskey,
which is funny.
Do most people that like whiskey also like cigars and vice versa? Are they kind of two things that kind of go together?
Yep.
This is how much I know about
similar
this, guys.
Flavor. I can't talk flavor profile.
Interesting.
This is my favorite though. If it's anywhere available, I'll get this because it's not priced so high like the purple, where you feel like you have to get out a loan to buy a bottle.
Smells like it'll do some damage.
But it's a good $100 if you can find it, but it's worth buying.
All right, here we go.
You just let it sit.
That's interesting.
But then see how it has flavor?
I'm like a high school, like a 16-year-old who's just trying alcohol for the first time. That's how I feel when I drink the stuff that he gives me.
See how it has flavor though still?
It actually tastes
There's
good.
A flavor.
I don't know. I just am not a big
Well, so then the second
spice.
The second sip that settles way down. Wait. Put that
Hey. Anyways, guys.
Cocoa down.
Anyways, guys, thanks for joining the ATF podcast. We're going to be doing this semi-regularly, just kind of goofing off, talking about whiskey and cigars and talking about the latest news as it largely pertains to guns and alcohol and firearms, whatever, ATF. You already know. We're going to talk about other things as well.
We'll also have other guests on the show every now and then. But something we want to do more regularly is break down trending news articles, particularly within the gun space, because I think that's first off where the most news is that's relevant, and second because I think end of the day it matters the most to those who don't just enjoy whiskey and cigars.
It's true. If you don't like whiskey or cigars,
this still matters.
You can still come have fun here with us. So also, before we get started, we do have an email sign up on our website. If you want to go sign up there, be sure to do so. We got cool content going on over there. So don't forget, link in the description. We'll remind you at the end of this video as well, because we know you're forgetful and we're going to help out with that. So
that's what the anyways for.
Yep. All right, let's get right into this article for today. This is pulled from Fox News. Fox News does these polls semi-regularly I don't know how they do them necessarily. I think this one at the end, what does it say? It says they polled over 1,000 people, 1,004 people registered voters. They polled nationwide who were randomly selected, yada, 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 yada. So trying to, hey, we actually did this poll the right way is what they're trying to say. But again, who knows whether this is an accurate depiction of what people really believe. As we know, polls are often, even if they're done, let's say the right way, this way, they're often not necessarily the most accurate as far as what the general population is feeling or thinking. We obviously know that when it comes to elections. If we remember back in 2016, when Trump was running against Hillary, what did all the polls say? All the polls said that Hillary would smash Trump into the ground and it wouldn't even be a contest, and the exact opposite happened. So take that as it is, right? Yeah. Take this poll with a grain of salt. But we're more going through this poll not to highlight whether or not it's accurate, but to go through the questions that it asks and see if we agree, see if you agree. You already get it, guys. All right, let's go through this first question. This all has to do with guns, gun safety, firearms policy. We're talking about background checks. We're talking about red flag laws, all that good stuff. Fox News polled people asking them these questions. Here we go. First question. And it's an agree or disagree. So Fox News said that 87% of people that they asked said they agree with requiring criminal background checks on all gun buyers. 87%. That one's not surprising. I feel like most people would say yes to that.
Let's preface this conversation a little bit, though.
Yeah.
I think if you were to say that constitutionally there should be no barrier between law-abiding American citizens who are innocent until proven guilty to owning a firearm,
mm-hmm.
by requiring criminal background checks, do you think that already infringes?
My personal opinion, yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
But also,
then there is the stipulation. I don't think that if you're a felon, I think you've revoked your own rights.
Yeah, but
right?
The process of figuring out, are you a felon or not?
Yeah, that's a tough question.
That's what we're here for.
I don't.
Should there be background checks?
Oh, man, I don't think so. I don't think there should be.
Let me back that up. If you were a king that didn't have to go through a court system, would there be background checks?
No.
Okay. I'm not living there.
There shouldn't. That's my personal opinion. Again, just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
We're going to leave it at that.
I wanted to ask that just because it kind of frames some of these questions. Because we've just by asking these questions or answering yes or no, it kind of puts you in the category of like, oh, that's called gun control at some level. And I think people assume that the conversation around gun control is saying making it difficult for people to buy guns or taking them away. But it also, I think
it's whether or not does it penalize
acquiring.
Yeah, does it in any way infringe or create red tape between or penalize law-abiding citizens?
Yeah.
Is it, this right is temporarily removed until you go through this government red tape,
Yep.
Or are you afforded that right regardless of what the government says about it, like how it should be? So background checks, I think, are a way for the government to keep tabs on who has the guns, which I think is problematic, especially if you understand the reason why we have the Second Amendment in the first place. It's to defend ourselves against a government if it goes tyrannical on us, like obviously the reason this country was founded. That's the point of the Second Amendment. So if you really break down what background checks are doing, it's questionable at best. So it doesn't really seem to solve the problem either. If you look at all these big headline mass shootings, I can't think of one that a background check would have stopped it. Can you?
No, especially when the narrative is that, oh, they got the gun illegally and then they went and shot up their school. It's like, no, we're seeing more and more incidents where the person legally acquired and legally passed the background check and would have passed a mental health screening.
Yep.
Like just because I just watched the Boston Marathon documentary that Netflix did. Fascinating. I feel like that was a better documentary that I've seen, especially produced by someone like Netflix, where they didn't try to pick a side too much. But one point they were making is that, was there a way to be able to identify that those two kids were going to do this before? And yeah, there was religious and social reasons they did it. But could they acquire, I mean, they used a pressure cooker, but could they acquire firearms legally, yeah, they would have not
Right.
checked any boxes. Other than
You know what they
their
say?
religion.
Any firearms regulation or laws is an infringement.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. All right, let's move on to the next one here. It's about improving the enforcement of existing gun laws. 81% of people say they agree with that. Again, that begs the question, what are the laws? If there's laws,
enforcement of existing gun laws.
Yeah, what are the existing gun laws? Are they good, or should they not be here in the first place? I think the ones that I think punishing people who misuse a firearm and hurt somebody with it, enforce those laws. I think you should make those penalties to those crimes much more serious. Like, let's say you murder, let's say you murder somebody with a firearm. Let's up the ante on the punishment to that person. So I think that's fine if that's what it means. If it means enforcing existing gun laws, like what we were just talking about with background checks or red flag laws, no, I don't agree with that. So, but they said 81% of people agree with that statement. They agree with improving.
Also, though, if you look at it from the lens of improving enforcement of existing laws, I think that should include improving bias that's found in the court system when these laws have to be used. If you're going to say we have this system that you have to go through to acquire a firearm, why is it not equal at every retailer? For example, if you go to Cabela's, at least when I went to buy a firearm, they needed car registration, driver's license. They didn't need birth
car registration.
Yeah,
what?
There were a lot more layers,
right?
Than if you go to another store in the area.
Yeah, if you go to your local pawn shop, they're like, oh,
but both are doing it legally. So where's the line of
right?
Is one legal? Is one not as safe? Is one doesn't need to be tighter?
Well, I think a big retailer
I
was going to say, I think a big retailer like Cabela's, because they've been in a lot of hot water. You saw Dick's Sporting Goods was in a lot of hot water with their firearm sales. Walmart and Dick's Sporting Goods are two examples of people who completely caved and stopped selling firearms as a result, which is interesting though, because they're still getting a bunch of money that basically makes up for it anyways from, various means. But maybe Cabela's is like, no, that's a big part of our business. We're not taking that away, but we're going to add all this stipulation and make it a little bit more difficult. So our end is covered.
Like Dick's and Walmart is their primary business wasn't firearms.
Right.
Cabela's is outdoors hunting.
That's like if you go into Cabela's, the store's going to be relatively empty except backed by the firearms department. Yeah. Right.
Raising the legal age to buy a gun to 21, 81% approved.
Okay. I have a couple thoughts on this. Number one, that's stupid because you're actually a legal adult at 18 in which the full extent of the law and the Constitution applies to you.
Right.
So no, right? Obviously, no, I think that's stupid. But at the same time, the rules aren't consistent. So you can join the military at 18 and go shoot somebody, in Iraq at 18, and you can go get your legs blown off at 18 in service of your country. But you come back home and you can't buy a beer, and they don't want you to not be able to buy a firearm here to protect yourself or protect your family. It's like, at least be consistent, right?
Sure.
You can vote to change the course of this country at 18 with no stipulation. But in order to buy a gun and exercise your Second Amendment right, you have to go through all this red tape. You got to go through the background checks. You got to, some people are saying, which we'll get to in a second, you have to go through mental health screenings. They're trying to push that legislation. You go down the list. It's just totally unfair. It's like, where do the laws apply? Where don't they? Talk about applying the laws, enforcing the current existing gun laws and applying them fairly. This is an example how that wouldn't be applied fairly. So comment below what you think if you're watching this video.
Also, you can buy cigars now, or you can't buy cigars under 21. That's
right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
At least they're like, let's just make all the contraband.
Yeah, everything's. But they want to lower the voting age to 16. What? So you can't buy a gun. You can't You can't buy a beer and you can't buy a cigar because you're not mentally capable of doing so because your brain isn't developed. By the way, the brain doesn't even develop fully till 25 if they want to play that game. But you can like go and vote and change the course of this country and change the policy that dictates our, your local districts and everything. That's fine. You can do that at 16. They want to push. But the same people are saying 21 to buy a gun. No.
Yeah. It's very odd. Shocking though that Trump was the one
that's politics
that signed that.
Yeah. Don't agree with that one.
I don't know what.
Don't agree with that one, Trump.
Maybe we'll have to get the Premium Cigar Association involved and get an answer on that.
Right.
No, that's the same one. Requiring mental health checks on gun buyers. 80% agree.
This is the one that I'm gonna firmly stand against.
The difficult one.
Yeah. Number one, what does mental health mean? What does mental mean? What does health mean? What do checks mean? You got a list. This is all vague. And if you look at a lot of this legislation and the politicians that push this type of red flag law legislation, which is what this is, it's very, very vague. And it's that way specifically so then they can write in whatever they want. So pretty soon it's going to be, if you don't agree with the current regime that's in power, if you don't agree with the Biden administration, let's say for this example, well, now you're going to be put on a potential terrorist watch list, like what they did with people who were going against the COVID narratives. This is true. The Department of Homeland Security literally made a public statement saying, if you have anti-government sentiment, this was back in 2020, 2021, if you have anti-government sentiment, you are now on a potential terror watch list.
Which
you're an
included
extremist.
Homeschooling mothers.
Yes. So if you're an extremist, according to the government who's enforcing these laws, just because you don't agree with their politics, what is that then under this kind of legislation give them the right to take away your Second Amendment rights? Because you're crazy and you're an extremist and you're unstable and you have harmful views? According to who? It's incredibly dangerous. I think this is something that anybody that in any way somewhat understands how the Constitution works and how our rights work in this country should be unanimously against this kind of legislation. But you have a lot of people, even on the right, like the Dan Crenshaws, and you can go down the list, who have publicly supported these kinds of red flag laws.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows, guys? I'm below what you think.
In the meantime, take the next sip of your whiskey. Maybe it'll settle. Also, you had it right after it was poured, so the gases and all that.
He's trying to make excuses for why.
No,
it tastes
not everybody likes it.
Yeah, I'm just not a whiskey person. That's really all
we're trying to change that because you didn't used to be a cigar person.
I didn't used to be a cigar person, and now I love them. So I also didn't used to be a beer person, and now when I go seek out, like I want to go buy a beer, I'm like, what is your strongest IPA? So
do you ask that?
Yeah.
Have you been surprised by any? Because some of them,
they taste like your mouth is being attacked.
Some of them taste like you're eating pennies.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, the beer world is one that I still need to dive into, even though my job before all of this, what got me started in this space, was writing about beer. So,
do you ever take a sip of whiskey and your whole face feels like it's just?
There's some not good ones. Or Angel's Envy Rye, super interesting. It's back there in the corner, all the way in the back corner. Anyways, I don't like it. But then you put a ice cube, like a ball of ice or something, and all of a sudden it tastes like cinnamon, and it feels like you're drinking Christmas. And I don't understand what happens, but it's delicious. So sometimes it's just how you're drinking it.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So guns. Take that, YouTube.
The next one. Allowing police to take guns from those considered a danger to themselves or others. This kind of goes in tandem with the one we just talked about. What do they consider danger?
Yeah, my wife is a social worker, and she used to work for the county. And there was a lot of cases where it was like, do we send the social worker? Or do we send the police officer? Do we send both? They would do wellness checks on people, especially when they're dealing with CPS cases with children. And in those cases, it's like, are you infringing on should your constitutional rights be infringed on because you're having a bad day? But also, is it worth taking the risk of having yourself or someone else injured or killed because you're mentally unstable. Like, I don't know what the right answer to that is. But if it's a matter of police officers who are trained to do this, to go assess the situation and then make that call, I think that's...
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I would, of any of these, I'd agree with this, at least in the phase of it up to checking. But just to say that, oh, my neighbor said something concerning, so we're going to call the police, and the police can just, no questions asked, take the guns away. No.
Or what if you say something as a joke? Like, what if you make a joke and somebody takes it seriously?
That's the thing. It's like law enforcement,
and all this next thing you know, law enforcement. Yeah.
But should police officers have the authority to be able to take it away?
Right.
Without further checks?
No. I think no.
Which I think most people in law enforcement are on the right side of this percentage, I think. But I think a lot of them also understand the other side.
Well, I think the assumption, I agree that the majority of people in law enforcement are probably like normal, everyday, good people, probably agree mostly with the things that we discuss on this show, right?
Yep.
Probably are Second Amendment supporters in some way, shape, or form, right? But what we saw over the last few years was a little troubling. How many police officers were just yes men and obeying the edicts of the government without really asking questions or making their own moral decisions. Like it was a little concerning, and it made me trust them less. Like, it made me want to give them less power. I'm not saying, BLM defund the police, but also I'm not like, let's just assume that they're all good and they're all on our side all the time, and they're not going to do really stupid things and be the enforcers for a potential tyrannical system. Because in history, that's what happened.
Case by case, though.
It's like the book. Have you ever read the book Ordinary Men by, I think, Christopher Browning?
I haven't heard it.
So if you guys are watching this and you want a good book recommendation, read that book. It's about police officers in Poland and it's a slow, gradual explanation of how they went from normal, everyday police officers serving their communities to violent enforcers of the regime, of the Nazi regime.
Yep.
And the baby steps and what it took to get there. And we're kind of seeing that start to happen here in the United States, unfortunately.
It's like the song Hero of War.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Rise Against song.
Yep.
Yeah.
The slow bleed of a well-intended soldier to someone.
Yeah, it's the moral failings. Once you say yes, it's like what Tucker was saying on that interview on that speech we were just watching. The more you lie, the weaker you are, and the more you're susceptible to continue to lie. And the more you tell the truth, the more susceptible you are to continue to tell the truth, and the stronger you get. And the more police officers start saying yes to stupid rules and enforcing things they know are wrong, just because, well, our boss told us to do it, the more they're going to be willing to do that down the road for bigger and bigger and bigger and worse things. And that's what that book is about. So that's the problem with things like this. There has to be some really strict and specific, stipulations on these kinds of laws if they are going to exist. Again, I don't think they should exist. My personal opinion.
Sure.
There's too many problems, I think, that come along with it. But okay, next one. Requiring a 30-day waiting period for all gun purchases. 70% of people, according to this Fox News poll, agree with the 30-day waiting period. What do you think?
The logic of the waiting period is so you can't be reactive and buy a gun and do something. But
I agree with no return policy on weapons. Like, you buy a gun and then 3 days later, you did what you had to do, and then 3 days later you return it. Yeah, no on that for sure.
I disagree with this, but I understand the logic behind a 30-day waiting period. But again, it's in that same category of I understand it, but I don't agree with it because it's constitutionally.
Again, some of the most tyrannical things that have happened in the world were done with the best of intentions.
A lot can happen in 30 days. So like, if there's some crazy news that's coming around the corner, and people are getting concerned about their safety, concerned about their position with the government, and they're like, all right, we got to go. Not in a way that I'm encouraging war, but like, we got to go prepare ourselves. And then you have retailers saying, nope, 30 days.
Mm-hmm. I agree with this. Maybe if you have a violent criminal history.
What would the 30 days do? Just the buffer?
Yeah. If you have a history of violence, like let's say you had a domestic abuse charge, you had something like that. Sure. Maybe this. But for someone who, again, innocent until proven guilty, we're all innocent. We all should be treated as such. And this treats you like you're guilty. to some extent, or
Sure.
treat you like you're going to do something wrong. And I don't think the
Yeah.
government has the authority to, I just don't agree with that. It's hard. A lot of these, though, it's like they sound like, yeah, that sounds okay. And then you really start to peel back the layers of what this would entail. And it's like,
to say
maybe
that
not.
something is good or bad versus saying I understand why is a very
Right.
different thing. And most of these, I understand why they exist.
Sure.
Do I agree
Yeah.
that they should exist? No. I don't think understanding the background of something necessarily deems it good.
Yeah, I understand why people would agree with that,
And it's
but
not criticizing those who think this is a good thing all
Right.
the time. But there are people at the top of the food chain that have ill intent. Like, for example, the beginning of Hitler's regime, his first action with firearms was come in and have them registered. Like,
come in and have them registered. Then it was the background checks. Then you just go. Then we're going down that, checking off that same list here in the United States.
Yeah.
So it's just a way for
but
the
then they
government
said
to
we're gonna
collect
hold on to your
data.
firearms for a few days, right?
Yeah.
Because we have a backlog and we got to catch up. And then, we're not giving them back to these groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and not saying that that's
it was-
necessarily the next step of this, but why would we give?
It was all a cover for the government to collect data on its citizens and figure out who has the gun. So then when they, said go on collecting them, they knew exactly where to go. They knew what doors to kick down.
Yep.
So,
And it worked. So look at that. Another 6 in 10 favored banning assault rifles and semi-automatic weapons. What's an assault rifle?
I don't know.
Assault rifle.
Yeah, assault rifle.
Grab that behind.
Banning assault
behind you.
right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got to use the mag release button.
Slide out.
Mag release. All right.
So this we're gonna do a little assault rifle 101. What is an assault rifle? Tell us, Alec.
I don't know.
Psych. There's no such thing as an assault rifle. Means a gun that you assaulted somebody with. Anything could be this. If I assault somebody with this iPhone, this is an assault iPhone. Okay. It means nothing. It's a term used, as we all know, to scare people and to intimidate people into thinking that guns are the thing that's bad and that's hurting people instead of people that are actually misusing what they're intended for.
Right.
So
this is an interesting topic too, because people look at the big black gun, in this case, big green gun, and like, that can inflict so much more damage than a pistol. Can it, in the hands of those who know how to use it? Maybe. But it's an accuracy, it's a controllability thing. But the gun itself, you pull the trigger every time you want it to go off.
Mm-hmm.
And people are reacting to these as if you hold the trigger down and everybody near you dies.
This whole question too.
It's just
another favor banning assault rifles and semi-automatic. It's such a misleading question. Like, what? They know most of the people reading this, they don't know what this is. Like, they don't know what that means. Assault rifle. They don't even, half of these people, like, I've done street interviews before in Austin, go around asking people questions about politics. And we did one about weapons one time, going on asking people if they could define what semi-automatic means, if they could define what assault rifle was. Nobody knows.
So
it's shocking.
Dictionary assault rifle definition is a rapid-fire, magazine-fed automatic rifle designed for infantry use. This is another thing.
So that describes
infantry use.
Yeah.
Which based off this definition, that means it's not for civilians.
That doesn't describe any of the guns that they like to tote around. Oh, look, this mass shooter used this one. That doesn't describe any of them then. So none of them have been automatic weapons.
They
right?
have the capability.
Yeah, but none of them were.
No.
So
they're very hard to find.
Right. It's just again, it comes down to definitions. People don't understand what the terms mean. They use these scary words to make it seem like this is something that no civilian should have. It's ridiculous. Again, we got to go back to, why does the Second Amendment exist? If we're going to talk about banning weapons, why does it exist?
To clarify that one, though, in the article, there's a link talking about the Washington weapons ban. The state of Washington became the 10th state to institute a general ban on assault weapons. And it's interesting how when you see these different headlines come out, everyone defines assault weapon differently. So in Washington, it was a weapon that automatically chambered the next round after shooting the prior round.
Mm-hmm.
So a Glock.
Almost every firearm you'd own besides a single action revolver or
a lever action or bolt.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because now you see in states that assault rifles are illegal or semi-automatic weapons are illegal, meaning one bullet per trigger pull. Hunting rifles are still legal. Bolt action are still legal.
It's still, which is interesting though, because an AR-15 is one of the most popular guns used for hunting.
Well,
so
a format of it,
yes,
not a 5.56 round.
Right.
But there's guys like Chris Costa at Costa Ludus who are getting really popular at training people in lever actions, like the Henry, and then they're teaming up with companies like Mad Pig Customs or Ranger Point Precision, and they're making these super tactical.
Like what was featured on John Wick 4. Have you seen that movie yet?
I haven't seen it yet. I heard there's one.
There's one featured. Yeah, one of these. They're awesome. I want to get one.
And if you train with them right, you can be super effective in a combat application with them.
Mm-hmm.
How is that safer? More training, maybe. There's more recoil. There's more going on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're responsible in training with what you're buying, then
it comes down to responsible gun ownership, knowing what you have, knowing what its capabilities are. There's nothing in and of itself wrong with one weapon versus another. It's just how you use them. It's whether or not, because like, I mean, we all know, guys.
Be an encouragement to people in states that you can't have them in those 10 states, that there are still options.
Yes. And we all know criminals don't care about the law. You write a law like this, they don't give a crap. They're going to do what they do anyways. The only people that are going to be laying them down are going to be law-abiding people who, although at this point, if you own one of these weapons at this point, you're probably somewhat aware of what's going on and you're probably not just going to give them up. The only thing that this stops, though, is future buyers from being able to get their hands on these kinds of weapons without there being a bunch of criminal charges coming at you. Yes.
So Axis Manufacturing in Spokane, we did a collaboration and story with them last year. They're screwed because it's like you can't sell to people in your state. You can't sell to people out of your state. All you're stuck with is being able to sell to
the government
in law enforcement who can legally still buy.
The government knows they can't just go door to door and kick down your door and take your weapons. They can't do that. They don't have the firepower to do that. They don't have the
really badly.
They don't have the manpower. They don't have enough men to do that. Right? But what they can do is screw the manufacturers and regulate the manufacturers out of business, tax them out of business, write this kind of legislation to get rid of them. And that's what they're doing. They're going after the manufacturers directly. They're going after the ammo producers, all of it. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's another piece that people kind of ignore is the ammo. It's like we saw the craze of what can happen when the ammo industry is threatened during COVID. You couldn't find 9mm anywhere, and if you could find it, it was several dollars around. And that happened in the span of like a week.
Yep.
Imagine if there was actually civil unrest. Good luck. Hope you have a good storage.
Yeah, this is one of those questions, the 6 out of 10 here that we're talking about banning assault rifles and semi. I just don't think, there's no way 61% of Americans agree with that. I just don't believe that.
It's possible that when they asked this question, the question was not posed this way, and the question had details.
That's what I'd want to know. Like, what were the actual questions Fox News? Maybe it was this, but what were the actual questions Fox News used? When posing these to the people that were polling. I don't know, because it's hard to say. It's hard to believe that 61% of Americans would agree with that one, especially. Some of the other ones I could see why people would say that. This one is like so ridiculous.
Also, you have to think though, that depending on how they did the poll, let's say they did it in New York City.
Right.
That'll sway.
A Republican in New York City is not the same as a Republican in Watertown, Wisconsin, Conomowoc.
A slim majority is opposed to more citizens carrying guns to defend themselves. 52%. Defend themselves against attackers.
I would encourage you guys to look up. We're not going to go through them right now, but I would encourage you. Maybe we'll do a future video on it. I'd encourage you guys to look up the statistics between violent crimes that are committed with firearms versus the amount of violent crimes stopped or thwarted by people using a firearm in self-defense. It's like a 10-to-1 ratio. So there's far, 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 far more violent crimes that are stopped as a result of someone defending themselves with a firearm versus someone getting hurt by one. And that's a statistic that most of the media doesn't want you knowing about because it shatters their entire narrative about what firearms are and what they're supposed to be used for. They're supposed to be used to defend yourself and to protect your family, and they're supposed to be used for good, which is what they mostly are used for. So, again, people answering this question, the still majority are opposed to you concealed carrying or carrying a gun for self-defense, defend yourself or those around you. They just don't know those stats.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on part a fault of the educational institutions, of definitely the media, the people funding the media, politicians spewing propaganda about this stuff at us all the time.
I've never had anyone clarify or explain why law-abiding citizens shouldn't be able to carry a firearm.
There's no justification why shit.
Because again, law-abiding, that's a very important word here. If you're law-abiding, you driving a tank around should just be as safe as you driving a scooter around. If you're law-abiding,
mm-hmm.
right?
Well, they want to make it so you're breaking the law, so you're no longer considered under the law-abiding.
Well, I understand that
by doing things that you are constitutionally
let's
afforded
say a
to do.
well-intentioned person is like, I don't think you should carry a firearm. I've never heard a good why explanation. If you have a why, let us know.
Yeah, I would love to hear. Like, that would be an interesting discussion if we could find someone that's against that and
not to
have them on and talk. I just want to hear why. Floor is yours.
Because like maybe there's a reason that we're missing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see a downside other than the bad guy getting your gun, right?
Right. Which
in that case, be better at having a gun.
Don't leave it in your truck when you go into the store. Only, and the amount of stories I've seen of like someone has a truck and they got American flag sticker or they got a NRA sticker on their truck.
Tim Kennedy's
yeah, and like
awareness.
Yeah, and it's like, don't put that stuff on your vehicle. Don't make it obvious that you have one, because you're just asking to have your things broken into and your gun stolen and that gun used in some crazy way by some crazy person.
Yeah, be the gray man. Which it's funny. That's a funny topic. I think it was Lucas Bodkin at why am I forgetting what they're called? T-Rex Arms. He's very into being the gray man, and I saw some comment under one of his posts, and someone was like, "You're so gray that you have like I can see the 10 guns sticking out of your hands." There's a middle ground, I think.
That's why you got to drive a minivan like me.
Your grandma's
nobody
minivan.
knows.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyways, I think this is about it for this article. There's a couple more things here. We'll link it in the description for you guys. If you want to check this out for yourselves, feel free. Send it around. Thanks for watching. Any closing remarks? Besides sign up, go to our website, link in the description.
Yep.
Put your email in there. We're going to be sending out some good stuff.
We're going to be doing a lot more of these. We've had changes with, you could say changes with the company, changes with our content strategy over the past 2 months. But podcasts are something that we really want to lean into. And then not dance around current issues. We'll still have all the cigar and alcohol content and interview owners of your favorite brands and people all over in those industries. But I think this is relevant, especially in the political climate we're in right now. So
yes, it is. I agree.
So as these headlines come out, we'll try to do a few of these a week. Break them down. Especially so many people don't have time. I mean, call it, I don't know if it's an excuse or not, but they don't have time to be aware of what's going on that affects them directly. So if we can make that process a little bit easier for you, then I think we did our job.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, do you have anything else?
Absolutely. That's it. That's all I got. Thanks for watching.
All right.
We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Until then, go find some Willet.